We're coming at you from the Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for Billy C's Change My Mind. And joining me for this week's Change My Mind episode is a guy that loves to argue with me and attempt to change my mind, my main man, Alex Pierpaoli. What's up, brother?
Hey, Billy C. How you doing?
Jeez, I mean, we get to argue on air about more and more. It's getting scary.
I know it.
Well, the one thing you and I we've talked. Well, we disagree on several things, but this is something that we actually, I think it started off on a show once, and you gave me your opinion, but it's a topic you and I discussed, and basically I feel that it's important for the sport of boxing to not so much cater, but to at least target and obtain the casual sports fan, the guy that can tell you who won the Super Bowl or the World Series, and the guy that's hanging around the office at the water cooler on Monday talking about the games and stuff like that. And I think that fan, that level fan, is important to the sport of boxing. And you don't feel that it's that important because you feel that there's a pool of boxing fans that we should actually be catering to, and our focal point for the sport of boxing should be on them. So here's your platform, my man. I want Alex Pierpaoli to change my mind. Hey, good shot at changing my mind, Alex, but no.
As difficult a thing as that might sound, I'll give it a shot. Yes, I think that, unfortunately, first a little bit of background about myself. I started watching boxing in the Mike Tyson era. I saw him defeat Sammy Scaff. That was December of 1985. I was a teenager. I saw it replayed as part of a ESPN boxing replay in the afternoon after school. I saw that 90 seconds or so, 100 seconds, and I was hooked. I bought all the magazines. I, followed it. Back then, the major newspapers had a boxing columnist who would follow the sport. Nowadays, you don't even have that. And I think that's what my experience has been. Is back then, that was 1985, boxing was much more of a mainstream sport. And I think my position that I have now, that we shouldn't concern ourselves as boxing people, we shouldn't concern ourselves with the mainstream fan as much because they've turned on us. It happened pretty much during the Tyson era, and a lot of it had to do with, the way the American, sports is covered in general, and that has to do with the advertisers. Corporate America, Madison Avenue, turned away from boxing. In fact, I could argue that a lot of it had to do with Mike Tyson.
Well, wait. Let me just address that first. I agree with that. That very well could have been the case with some, Madison Avenue, the way you define it, Madison Avenue advertisers or potential sponsors, because of a lot of the negativity that started, a lot of the negativity that started surrounding Mike. But the thing is that one of the issues was that I actually believe is important, and it's a good point for me to make right now, to insert that right with what you're saying, is because Mike Tyson, whether people liked him or not, just like you said when you saw the Sammy Scaff fight, you were hooked. Mike Tyson was a character in and out of the ring. He was a guy that people wanted to see. Now, some people went and bought a ticket or watched him on television because they hated him, and other people would just loved him, or other people were just amazed at this freakish power and everything else. So he was a character that I believe that the casual sports fan, specifically boxing, would be attracted to. Similar to today, we might have a guy that could talk to you about Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather that couldn't tell you who the world heavyweight champion is, only because of the fact that they've gotten out to mainstream sports media. So that is an influencing issue where there really aren't any characters in the sport today as it was, in the 80s when you first started watching.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a major factor, is that boxing is, well, one, it's driven by the heavyweights, especially in America. The popularity, at least, the mainstream popularity is driven by the heavyweight division, and also by stars in general. I mean, I think you're absolutely right about Manny Pacquiao. I think that's one of the things that there's been a couple of articles how they feel that the Marquez KO of Pacquiao was sort of a death knell for a sport that, was already on life support, because he was one of our last stars, and now to see him flattened, people are going to turn away. I don't agree with that, because one, I don't think he was as, I think certainly he became a transcendent star, and that's what the sport needs. That's what Mike Tyson was, where everyone has heard of this guy. He becomes a household name. Let's backtrack for a second. I think that boxing will always be popular with everyone, because fighting is popular. I mean, remember, you've seen this many times, I'm sure. It happens almost sadly, almost any fight card. When there's a fight in the stands, people turn away from the boxing match, turn away from the fight to watch the fight. So people love fighting. I think it's part of our nature. There was an article just recently, evolutionary biologists found that the idea of the way that we make a fist may have been part of our evolution, that it's the most sensible way to curl your hand into a weapon and protect the fingers. So there's something at our very core. We'll always want to see two people go at it. The thing is that, will it be a mainstream sport like the NFL is, the NBA? I'm not sure you could even say NHL or Major League Baseball anymore. People talk about those sports as having somewhat of a niche audience. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the world has changed.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm not going to dispute that boxing isn't a mainstream sport anymore, like it was back in the day when really there wasn't much other choices. But my point is that I feel that it's important to reach that casual fan. Maybe not for all of the fights, but we do need that fan, and we need it for a lot of reasons. We need it to get that talk, that discussion at those water coolers. We need it to possibly help build up young fighters so that we do have those bigger events that, all sports fans seem to watch. Where you and I differ is that I think it's important to try to, I don't want to use the word cater, but I actually can't figure out another word to choose. But, I don't want to cater to these casual fans, but I certainly want, boxing to kind of reach out to them, to catch them, to try and interest them into watching, and you and I have talked many times about, some virtually great fights that no one watches, and is the reason because it's the sport? Is it the reason behind that because they're paying too much attention to other sports, or is it the lack of promotion? Is this problem that I feel we have with not reaching that casual fan? Is it our own problem? Is it something that we're building ourselves with lack of promotion or lack of characters in the sport and all of that?
I think those are two big factors. I think promoters can do a lot to change it, and I think that just having stars changes it, because like we saw with the Pacquiao-Marquez quadrilogy, if you will, with that fourth fight. Remember, kings and queens, as well as paupers and peasants, come to ringside. We had the man who would be emperor there, Mitt Romney and his wife, within a few feet of Pacquiao and Marquez. And so I think that the appeal is there when there's stars. But you're right. I think one of the things that's happened, along the period that, at least I've been watching the sport, is we've seen the rise of corporate power to ludicrous levels in everything. And when that happens, everything becomes a commodity. This is something the journalist Chris Hedges talks about, that when everything becomes commodified into something you're being sold, then reality has become somewhat of an illusion. And yes, promoters are responsible for that, because I think that one of the problems is, unlike it used to be, like when we talk about in the blast from the past, these golden age of boxing when there was only 8 champions, is there's so many titles now. A promoter can sort of create a star who's not really, the fact that he's a champion, there's an asterisk on it, because there's 2 other guys in his weight division that also call themselves, at least 2 other guys in his same division that also call themselves champion. And the fact that he might just be the best that promoter has to offer in that division, because as we've seen over the last couple of years, the 2 major promoters have such a feud that you never get to see who's the best out of either of them, because they won't sign deals together. So you're right. I think that promoters do have a big responsibility in appealing to the mainstream fan. But I guess we do see, like with Golden Boy, they are good, and even Top Rank, they are good at massaging those particular markets that do exist there, whether it's Mexican fans with Canelo Alvarez, his marketing, or with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.'s marketing. Those guys do great sales when they fight. Or Miguel Cotto with Puerto Rican fans on the East Coast.
Right. Well, listen, again, I'm not going to dispute that, and the big event, topics and stuff are perfect to talk about from that sense, where you got a big event. Back in Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier matchups, guys like Frank Sinatra were in the audience. Everybody who was anybody was there. Yes, I agree. That has maintained. When it's an event, all the stars come out, not only sports stars, but actors, actresses, and all the beautiful people. They all like to come out. But
like glitter.
Right. Well, it's a happening, especially, you see everybody at the big places, the big events, they're always there. They want to be seen there and everything else. But back to the original point, I do believe that boxing needs to try and get more of these casual fans to follow the sport, whether it be on a weekly basis. They don't have to know and follow it as tightly and as closely as we do, but they should be able to know who the world champion is, at least one of them, or maybe have an interest or something like that. And I think that's important for the longevity of the sport. Not that I feel it's dying. I actually feel it's the opposite. But to get it back to the glory days that you and I love, I think we need to get more of these people instead of chasing them away. These last couple of weeks, we've seen some terrible, actually horrific decisions and or controversial decisions, however you want to word it. I guess horrific is that's too much Alex Pierpaoli word, but controversial.
Well, you could argue it's horrific if you're the guy on the wrong end of it.
Well, that's the argument. The argument is, is it controversial or whatever? But my point is that one of the negative things is, let's say I'm a boxing fan, a casual boxing fan that was like Alex Pierpaoli. I became a fan when Mike Tyson knocked out Sammy Scaff, and I started following the sport. And, I went through my ups and downs. Sometimes I liked it, sometimes I didn't. Now Mike Tyson's gone. And there was no one like him to replace him. And I stopped watching it. And 20 years went by, because here we are today. And still I bump into people, and they'll find out what I do for a living, and they'll be like, oh, I used to watch boxing. Oh, yeah, Mike Tyson. Oh, I used to watch Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard and what have you. And it's like, well, come on back. What did you stop watching it for? Well, and the answers are generally the same. It's, who's going to win now. They're not competitive. The decisions, there's always robberies. There's always crazy stuff. And it's hard to argue those points. And then today, when you actually see that the matchups are better than they have been in a handful of years, you end up with the same other controversies. They're not going away. The questionable decisions, did he land that punch? Did he not land that punch? And I think it's important to clean that aspect of the game up so we can get some more of these fans back.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's true. Well, I think you're right conditionally because, well, here's my thing, because I think this is where we do disagree pretty strongly. When a person to me says, when they say that to me, and you're right, that's what you hear a lot. Oh, I used to watch boxing, but I stopped watching. I haven't watched boxing since Mike Tyson. It hasn't been good since then. Okay, well, if you haven't been watching since Mike Tyson, you've missed Roy Jones Jr., you've missed Felix Trinidad, you've missed Fernando Vargas, you've missed a lot of Oscar De La Hoya.
All of Oscar.
You've missed, I mean, to me, that's somebody who, I don't care if they're not coming back to the sport. I'm not going to try to court them because there's been great fighters. But
all right, but you're not being fair because you are looking at it through your eyes as a boxing purist, and I get it. Believe me, I understand your point, and I don't.
Well, hold on though. But I think you're right. I mean, because again, I don't mean to say those are great fighters and say that they are great like Harry Greb, Benny Leonard, Ray Robinson great. I'm saying they were great for the era. And
I'm like saying to myself, okay, I don't disagree with you, but I still think that we need to get those fans back to a sense. I mean, again, I could go back and say, well, why did they leave? It's not all about Mike Tyson. It was about, and why did they miss Oscar De La Hoya? Why did they miss Fernando Vargas and Roy Jones Jr. and all these great fighters that were in that filled that void between Mike Tyson and today? And you got to go back and try to look at it through their eyes. And what we could say is, well, all the naysayers were born then. Yes, there was always naysayers in the sport of boxing, but a lot of them were born during Roy Jones Jr. era. Let's take him specifically. Roy Jones Jr., this was a guy that, people were criticizing that he was handpicking his opponents similar to what Floyd Mayweather goes through today, and maybe that turned some people off. So I mean, we actually, when I say we, the boxing world has the ability to correct it. And they're trying to, and that's the way I see it. I see, a lot of people don't like the Golden Boy and Top Rank and stuff, but these two major promoters invest money into their fighters. That's why we know who those fighters are, and I still believe that it's important for us to continue this upswing to lasso some more of these fighters. More of these fans. What I was starting to say is, where we really disagree is that you have a tendency to look through your boxing purist eyes and say, hey, forget those guys, screw those guys. They're not giving us the support we needed, when boxing was a little slow, or when, Roy Jones Jr. or Lennox Lewis or whatever was fighting. They weren't there for us. Now, why should we waste our time? Why do we need to alter our game for them right now when there's plenty of diehard fans we may be losing and
exactly.
What have you?
You could say it. I'm an elitist. I'm a snob.
Right. No, but my point is that I understand your point, and I'm not disagreeing with the reasoning behind it. It's just that from a dollar's point of view and for a success point of view, I think we do need those people. It's too big of a number. And I'll give you an example. If all football, NFL football, or all basketball or baseball fans were diehards, and if only diehard fans watch the NFL and only diehard fans watch Major League Baseball, I don't think that they would be as big as they are today. Look at the Super Bowl that's going to be coming up in a few weeks. That's considered an American holiday. It's right. Second to I think none. I think it took the lead in the last couple of years about family gatherings and food and how much pounds of food the American people eat and stuff. And I would bet my last nickel. Oh, okay, I don't have a nickel. I would bet my last penny that most people that are watching the Super Bowl, and I say most, are either one of two things: either not even fans of football, or definitely not fans of the two teams that are playing. So I want that. I want those numbers for the sport of boxing. That's where I think it's important.
Okay, yeah. Now, sure, it would be nice to get numbers like that for the sport of boxing, but in a way, there's part of me that thinks, because what I was saying, in the sense that it is legalized assault, that maybe there'd be a problem getting those kind of numbers, because there's always going to be people that aren't in it for the sportsmanship. They're just in it for the violence. And I think that maybe that's, you can't help some of that. But I think that I think what you're saying, though, is true, that the mainstream sports fan, when they do watch boxing, they want the best to fight the best. And I think we have, aside from the promotional conflicts that we've talked about with some of the mega stars in the division, the best have been fighting the best lately, and that's pretty cool. And I think the other thing that mainstream fan wants, when they watch the sport, they want to see fair decisions. Now, I think some of that comes into the fact that when you have a mainstream fan, they're not the most educated in terms of what to look for. And let's face it, boxing is a subjective sport. As much as it seems like the most basic thing in the world, two guys hitting each other, it's not. And you could have, as we talk about a lot on the show, you have different perspectives all around that room from what they're seeing, whether a punch lands, how hard it landed, how much damage one guy's sustaining, how much damage the other guy's doing. And the fact is, bad decisions have always been part of boxing. But when they are, just seem to be a ridiculous pattern, yeah, that doesn't help anybody. But I think let's look at what's happened this year. The times boxing has been on, I think the thing is, when the best fight the best and when it's marketed well, the mainstream fan is interested in it. Look at the CBS show this year with Leo Santa Cruz. That did good numbers. The recent Cunningham Adamek rematch did very good numbers. So I think that, there are people out there that will still watch and will come back if it's offered to them. But I think that goes back to the mainstream advertisers and TV networks. They walked away from it. And I think a lot of it was, because remember, Mike Tyson had contracts with major corporations like Pepsi. Those guys don't advertise with boxing at all. Even beer doesn't advertise with boxing anymore. Now you see things like Southwest Airlines and movie premieres that are advertised on ring surfaces. So the industry itself has changed a lot.
Yeah, well, the only two beer companies I see here in the States, anyway, is Corona and Tecate. I mean,
right,
that's
the Latino market, which is another growing base. Yeah.
I think you hit a couple of things on the head from my case. The poor decisions or lack of fair decision. We talked about the characters, needing characters in the sport. And the first thing you brought up was the abundance of world champions. If all these things were back to normal, so to speak, where you could conceivably say, well, the decisions are fair. There are some characters in boxing, and we don't have 20 world heavyweight champions. Maybe the interest would be back, but all of those things are fixable from us, from the boxing people, from within. And it's the greed factor and the lack of promotion that is preventing that. But it still goes back to we need it. We need to get these guys back, these fans back, even if they only show up for those big fights. And I don't mean the big mega fights like the Manny Pacquiao. You mentioned the fight on network television, the Tomaz Adamek and Steve USS Cunningham fight. You're right. The numbers were fantastic. But look what happened. It was a controversial decision. It wasn't even a decision that was controversial. As a matter of fact, when you go back and look at that fight, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and you said it yourself, I mean, boxing is so subjective, I would have been happy with any decision. That Cunningham won, that Adamek won, that it was a draw, I would have accepted any. However, the way they presented it. And the reason why it carried so much negativity with these fans we're discussing right now, these casual fans, is because they literally, and this was no one-time ring announcer. This was Michael Buffer gets on the gets behind the mic and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the winner is it's a draw." Oh wait, what's this? Oh, they handed me the wrong scorecard. Oh, they added it up wrong. Oh, that's right. The winner now is Adamak. Yeah, he's the promoter's fighter. All right, and now I'm watching the first boxing event on network television in 15 years, and I happen to be flipping through the channels at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I want to watch it. And as soon as that happened, guess what I just said? Oh, that's right. That's why I don't watch friggin' boxing anymore, And that's the part that I can agree with you in a sense, because some of the casual fan doesn't understand that. Maybe this was only an isolated time, but it's still important to fix that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. And I think that's one of those moments where, there's people that I've heard that saying that, boxing is just like life. Boxing is more like life than life. And that's one of those moments where it kind of seems like it, because that's one of those things you can't even believe that. That's Murphy's Law in effect right there.
Well,
just, a bad decision and then have addition and subtraction mistakes.
Oh my God! And then even after that, they post the scorecard so the whole world can see. And then then you actually see that they added it wrong twice. It wasn't what they crossed out and fixed wasn't even the right addition. And the funny thing is that judges go down the line, in case anybody's watching that they don't understand this. After each round, they're supposed to total it.
I think that's the part that I think the network itself, whoever's broadcasting it, they have a responsibility. And this is something that I think you can talk about with any form of media nowadays. I mean, we're in a point where where you get your news says something about how you feel about that news, because how it's shaped to you goes a long way in how your opinion comes out of it. And I think that's where whoever's broadcasting the sport needs to remind people that, look, this is a subjective sport. You're going to have a lot of perspectives from ringside, and like you said, if this decision goes 7-5 for one guy, or somebody else sees it 7-5 the other way, that's not a robbery. That's not a crazy decision. That's believable. That happens. It's when somebody sees it, 8-2 for one guy, and the other guy sees it even. That's when something's screwy's happening. And I think that the people who are covering it need to bring that up into perspective. I think that's something you saw in the Olympics, where Teddy Atlas and Bob Papa there, they didn't make any friends there because their opinions were so strong. Sometimes they were accurate, sometimes they weren't. But their attitudes and their mouths are so big that if you're watching, you can't help be shaped by that. Right. And I think that's something they need to keep in mind, because sometimes they're off.
Well, and to be honest with you, and man, did this time fly. We're done here, but to be honest with you, that I think was pretty instrumental. That negativity, and I'm to blame for that too. During the last 15 years, there was a lot of times, boxing, oh man, another bad decision. I mean, the more and more people talk about it, and the less and less beat reporters that we used to have. We used to have a boxing reporter from every newspaper in the United States. We don't have that anymore. I believe there's only one. It might be Smith from New York, but aside from that, the negativity just helped compound every bad thing, and all the good things are never pointed out. That doesn't make news anymore. Just the bad stuff. This one was arrested. This guy was killed. This one was shot. This one was, it just makes it bad. But Alex, I think we agree that a lot of the problems with the sport of boxing could be fixed, and we could actually fix them ourselves. And I say ourselves within our own community, if the greed factor, if some of these guys would just stop with the greed. But as far as our original point here about not needing the casual fan, in all fairness, I don't think we really touched on that as much as I would have liked to. So with all that said, Alex Pierpaoli, Alex Pierpaoli, you have not changed my mind. I mean, but we did make some interesting points, and I think that if there are any casual fans watching right now, that they could relate and understand some of the reasons, or at least agree with us about some of the reasons why they're not watching us anymore. But
they could go right to hell.
I know. And if it was up to Alex, and if it was up to Alex Pierpaoli, he says, "Stay not watching us, damn it, we don't need you." And I say, yes.
I believe they'll come back when there's a matchup they like. But you're right. I think that's where we disagree.
Yeah, but the big point is exactly what you started off, and your train of thought would have been great if you stuck with it. But you said that you watched Mike Tyson fight and you were hooked ever since. So therefore, if you fast forward to 2013 and you got a 20-year-old kid out there, and there's a new guy in town, Bam Bam Rios or Adrian Bronner, and they're seeing him for the first time, or they're seeing some other kid that's 5-0 and they happen to be at a live boxing event, and they see something that captivates them, just like Mike Tyson captivated Alex Pierpaoli 25 years ago. That's what you need. So that fan says, "Oh man, I want to see this guy again."
Expanded because Mike Tyson is what captivated me and got me to keep watching. But that's not what enthralled me. There were so many aspects of that just minute and a half that I'd never seen anywhere else. These just amazing opposites and dichotomies in this seemingly simplistic world where two guys stripped to the waist crack each other in the head. To me, it was a rich, amazing world that I wanted to focus on. So
and
it
with
wasn't
that,
just Mike Tyson that got me to stick around.
I know, but with that theory, I hope that there's some casual fans watching right now and give boxing a chance, because believe it or not, maybe you don't know of any characters in this sport or anybody that possesses some great boxing skill, but there are. We do have a lot of athletes out there that are professional fighters, and they are good. They are worth the price of admission. The only problem is you don't know about them because the promoters are too greedy and they don't want to promote them. So I don't know what to tell. I don't know what message to send out to the casual sports fan, but all I can say is give boxing another chance. I think you might not be as disappointed as you might have stumbled across a network television broadcast. That's all I'm saying, But,
I can certainly agree with that.
But anyway, Alex, I see room in my crystal ball for many, many Billy C's Change My Mind starring Alex Pierpaoli. So hopefully we could do this again real soon.
Sounds great, Billy C.
All right, brother. That's Alex Pierpaoli. You can catch him every Wednesday on the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show right here on LDL TV. Until next time, ciao, baby.